3 spine-chilling fall horror tales. Terrifying secrets revealed on a haunted October night. Sarah had just finished her grueling night shift at the hospital, her mind still racing with blood-curdling sirens and the smell of antiseptic lingering in her nostrils like a ghost. The small suburban town she drove through felt alive with the darkness that wrapped around it, thick and cloying. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered like eerie eyes watching her, and cobwebs seemed to whisper the town's haunted secrets. This night felt wrong. The air was heavy, almost suffocating. As she pulled into the driveway, the wind howled like a banshee, sending shivers down her spine. She stepped onto the cracked sidewalk, her heels echoing in the stillness, and engaged her senses to push away the gnawing dread settling in her gut. When she finally entered her home, she could hear her own heartbeat thumping like a warning drum. Just as she locked the door and turned to exhale, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. It was a text from Jake, her 10-year-old son, supposed to be safe at a sleepover. "Mom, I think I heard something in the basement." Words danced in her mind: disappearing children, trusted neighbors, Mr. Henderson next door, his presence rustling up whispers of lost innocence. Panic gripped her. She gripped the phone tightly, the screen illuminating her pale face, evoking images of horror tales she long pushed deep within her. The house felt alive. Each creak of the floorboards sounded like a warning bell, setting her on edge. As she made her way toward the basement door, shadows lengthened ominously, twisting and contorting into shapes that made her heart race in despair. She breathed deep, whispered Jake's name, but only silence returned. And then the power flickered, plunging the house into a claustrophobic black. Cold fear wrapped around her throat like an icy hand. With the flashlight shaking in her grip, every soft sound intensified the brittle rustle from within the basement unbearable. Footsteps slow and deliberate, creaking against the wooden steps below. She hesitated, fear electrifying her veins, battling the instinct to flee. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The footsteps stopped. The air felt heavier now, the weight of 1,000 unspoken secrets pressing down on her shoulders. Her heart thundered like a trapped animal, longing for freedom. Another buzz broke the suffocating silence, and she glanced down, blood running cold. An unknown number read, "The secret is buried deep. Trust no one." Before she could process, a shadow loomed at the top of the basement stairs, carving a silhouette that mirrored her nightmares. Adrenaline kicked in. The choice was by now impossible to ignore. Fight or flight. But as she teetered on the edge of terror, breath held tightly in her chest. She felt a dreadful certainty something unspeakable awaited in the darkness. In that moment, as the figure stirred, Sarah realized that every tick of the clock propelled her into the heart of the horror that was only beginning. The figure at the top of the stairs took a cautious step forward, allowing the beam of her flashlight to illuminate its features, or rather, the lack of them. It was an obscured mass, as if a heavy fog clung to its face. Goosebumps erupted along Sarah's arms, like a swarm of ants crawling under her skin. "Jake?" she called, uncertain, her voice trembling like a fragile leaf in the wind. Silence responded. The shadow flickered, but didn't he answer? Not a peep, not a whisper. It felt alive, breathing darkness, and the air was thick with something more sinister than just fear. With a quick inhale, Sarah edged back, reassessing her choices. Should she run? The risk of leaving Jake? Her instincts screamed for her to stay and fight. She swallowed hard, gripping the flashlight tighter, feeling its cold metal through her clammy palms. "I'm coming down, sweetie," she yelled, her heart racing, trying to mask the fear coating her words. As she moved closer to the basement door, the silhouette shifted. It hung there, motionless, as if waiting for her to make the next move. Each creak of the wooden stairs beneath her reminded her of how alone she truly was. Suddenly, the unknown number's message flashed in her mind, sending a shiver down her spine. Trust no one. But she had to trust someone, right? Jake was depending on her. Somehow, she needed to believe that her son was safe. Taking a deep breath to settle her nerves, she stepped down onto the top stair, the cold was sending shocks through her feet. The darkness swallowed the light, inch by inch, until it felt as though she was stepping into a thick, suffocating blanket. Each step echoed disturbingly in the stillness, amplifying her heartbeat to thunderous proportions. "Jake!" she shouted again, louder this time, desperation creeping into her voice. Still, silence came crashing down around her. The flickering light of the flashlight revealed glimpses of the basement. Boxes stacked high, an old bicycle rusting in the corner, and then something moved to flash at the foot of the stairs that made her freeze. "Mom!" It was Jake's voice, thin and scared. "Help!" She turned, clutching the flashlight close, her heart feeling like it might burst. "Where are you?" "In the dark." "Mom, please!" Panic flooded her veins. Where could he be? The basement had never seemed so vast, so alien. She aimed the beam down, squinting, scanning for any sign of him. But the spaces between shadows swirled like pools of ink, taunting her with the promise of nothingness. Suddenly, the air grew frigid, sending a shudder through her body. An unnatural breeze rippled through the basement. Something had changed. Out of the darkness emerged the silhouette again, unfurling its limbs slowly, becoming distinctly human yet as monstrous as a nightmare. The dim light caught a glint of something sharp in its hand. Just as she realized she was no longer standing at the top of the stairs, but midway down, a chilling whisper breezed through her ears. "You shouldn't have come here." "It's too late." Sarah's heart raced. She realized she was not alone, and there was something far below waiting for her to descend further into madness. With every ounce of strength left, she turned to run back, but the figure lunged, grazing her arm with cold fingers. She gasped, collapsing against a nearby box, sending dust spiraling into the air as the basement door slammed shut above them, trapping her in the suffocating darkness. What awaited her in this nightmarish maze? The figure loomed closer. Its sharp breath echoed of secrets untold. With a final pulse of adrenaline, Sarah pulled free from fear and reached into the unknown. Sarah's fingers trembled as they brushed against the coarse surface of the box beside her. The figure loomed closer, its breathing growing more audible, a low rasp that filled the oppressive air. Her heart pounded, a relentless drum echoing in her ears, threatening to drown out all reason. Fear ignited her instincts. She had to find Jake before it was too late. "Jake!" she called again, forcing her voice to break through the heavy silence. The figure halted, its head tilting in her direction. The darkness made it impossible to read its intentions, but for a brief moment, it felt as if the mass was contemplating her. "Mom!" Jake's voice pierced through from behind the veil of shadows. "I'm scared." The sound lit a fire under Sarah's resolve. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." She pushed herself away from the box and moved deeper into the basement, the flashlight beam cutting through thickening shadows. Each corner she passed felt like a mouth, ready to swallow her whole. "Help me!" The whispering voice slithered through the stillness, brushing against her skin like a cold breeze. It was the figure drawing nearer. She could see it more clearly now. The edges of its form were shifting at times, making it appear more monstrous, less human. Suddenly, she felt something cold and clammy wrap around her ankle. Sarah screamed, yanking her foot free and propelling herself forward. But the sensation only tightened its grip, pulling her back. She stumbled, crashing into a stack of boxes that teetered ominously. "Jake!" She twisted around, illuminating every forgotten corner of the basement, her mind racing. Which way would lead her to him? She felt utterly lost in the treacherous maze, where boxes and forgotten relics turned into barriers rather than pathways. Heaving herself back to her feet, she kicked at the floorboards. "I want tea, let them take you," she shouted, more to reassure herself than anything else. The grip around her ankle released with an unsettling hiss, and she resumed her frantic search. For fleeting moments, the basement descended into silence. Her breaths harmonized with the quiet hum of desperation. Then, a loud crash echoed from the far corner, splitting the stillness like a knife. "Mom!" Jake's voice rang out, filled with dread. Spinning, she sprinted toward the noise, determination igniting every muscle in her body. Could be the way out it had to be. Shining her flashlight over the chaos, she spotted the unmistakable outline of her son crouching near an overturned box, partially hidden in darkness and debris. "Jake!" Relief surged through her. She rushed toward him, but just as she reached out, the figure re-emerged, blocking her path. Sharp light glinted off its wickedly glimmering hand, raising the frightful memory of its cold grasp. It lunged at her, and Sarah ducked, rolling to the side. The moment felt surreal, almost like she was swimming through a thick dream as she fought her way toward her son, trying to evade the entity that sought to keep them apart. "Come on, baby, get up," she shouted desperately. Jake took a shaky breath, his eyes locked on hers. "What is it?" "I don't know. Just follow me." In that harrowing moment, the basement shifted around them. The walls warred with shadows, closing in with every heartbeat. Just as they were about to escape the clutches of darkness, the whisper returned. "You've unleashed the curse." Panic lodged in her throat as the floor began to tremble. A profound rumble echoed, and the basement trembled beneath their feet. "Run!" Sarah yelled, grabbing Jake's wrist. They dashed toward the wavering light at the stairs, but a chilling realization struck her. What if they weren't alone? Something unseen began to rise from the depths. Something ancient and hungry. "The darkness is hungry," it murmured, a guttural voice reverberating through the basement. "Faster, Jake!" she cried, her feet pounding against the ground. Yet, the flare of her flashlight flickered as if it too was frightened. Would they make it to the door before the shadows consumed them both? Just then, the air thickened with a sense of approaching doom, shrouding them in uncertainty. Sarah could only see the looming door just ahead, but the weight of an unknown terror pressed down, tightening its grip around her throat. "Mom!" Jake's small voice broke through her swirling storm of dread. As she reached for the doorknob, she heard the faintest laughter echo from behind. A shadowy hand slithered toward them, poised to strike what lay waiting at the exit. Would freedom even exist beyond that door? The doorknob felt cold against Sarah's clammy hand, and dread surged through her as she twisted it. A shriek echoed behind them, sharp and malevolent, a sound that sliced through the mounting terror. She threw open the door, a sliver of light spilling forward, illuminating a narrow staircase leading into the dark above. "Go," she commanded, shoving Jake through the door and following closely behind. With every frantic step, the laughter grew louder, mocking and sinister, curling around them like a smoke that choked the air. The moment Sarah cleared the doorframe, the shadow surged closer, its presence thick and inescapable. The footsteps behind them pounded heavy against the wooden stairs, a thundering cadence of unrelenting pursuit. The stairs creaked under their weight, groaning as if to warn them that they were still trapped within its gnarled embrace. "Mom, please!" Jake's voice trembled with fear, glancing back toward the looming darkness still within the basement. "It's coming. Just keep running." But with every step, Sarah felt a growing dread. The darkness wasn't just behind them, it seemed to swirl around them, thick as fog, grasping at their feet. They burst through the door at the top of the stairs, into the living room. A slant of moonlight streamed through the window, standing in stark contrast to the basement's claustrophobic shadows. Safe. They were safe. For now. Panting, Sarah locked the door behind them, feeling a momentary wave of relief wash over her. She turned to Jake, who stood wide-eyed, his small stature almost swallowed by the vastness of the room. "Is it gone?" he whispered, trembling. I don't know." Her heart raced wildly, each beat echoing against her ribcage like a warning. But before she could explore that thought, a loud crash reverberated from the basement. The sound ricocheted through the house, echoing off the walls as Jake clutched her, his eyes darting between the door and his mother. "Mom," he started, words catching in his throat. "What was that?" "It must have been something falling," she replied, but her voice was shaky, lacking conviction. Memories of the figure haunted her. Its glimmering hand, its ghastly laugh, it felt like no simple entity but something darker, something that thrived on fear. "Maybe it's the curse." Jake's voice trembled as he remembered the whispers. The weight of his words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. "Enough, Jake. We need to think. We have to get out of here," Sarah said, panic clawing at her resolve. Her mind raced, that faint laughter still ringing in her ears. Where could they go? Who could help them? A scratching sound made her jump, pulling her from her thoughts. It came from the door leading to the basement, a slow, deliberate scrape, like nails dragging across wood. Sarah's stomach dropped. "Stay here," she ordered, eyes wide, but Jake's small hand gripped hers tightly. "No, I'm coming with you. Jake, no." But it was too late. He moved ahead, stepping closer to the door. "Mom, what if it tries to come through? We have to stop it." On instinct, Sarah reached for the knife from the drawer across the room, but now it felt like an insignificant tool against this unknown horror. She dashed to the door, her heart racing, just as the scratching intensified, echoing a desperate, relentless insistence. "Jake, back away now." In that moment, the door shuddered violently, as if something were trying to burst through, the wood creaking ominously under pressure. A dark shape began to ooze through the cracks, twisting and contorting into something grotesque. "Mom!" Jake screamed, his small body pressing against her as fear engulfed the space. "Move!" Sarah shouted, shoving him aside as she swung the door open. She had to face whatever it was, needed to find a way to protect them both. As the door creaked open, she was met with the swirling shadows, and she felt a shiver crawl down her spine. The grotesque figure blinked in the dark, revealing a face all too familiar, a twisted reflection of someone she thought she knew. "Help me," it croaked. The air turned cold as the figure reached for her, the moonlight flickering in ominous flashes. What did it want? Desperation gripped her. The laughter returned. Was it real, or just in her head? "Mom!" Jake's voice broke through the chaos and snapped Sarah from her trance. But she knew she couldn't hesitate. "Jake! Behind me!" she yelled, pushing him back as she faced the encroaching shadow. The only way out lay ahead, but at what cost? "What do you want?" she cried. The figure grinned, its smile hollow and wicked, darkness pooling in its eyes. "You're too late," it whispered. "You've awakened the curse." Trapped between reality and desperation, Sarah felt the darkness closing in. What would she have to sacrifice to survive? And then she heard it, the creaking floorboards behind her. Something lurked, waiting, hungry for their fear. Was this the end? Or just the beginning? Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The shadow loomed larger, its features sharpening as it stepped into the fractured light. "You're too late," it repeated, voice dripping with malice. She backed away slowly, urgency clawing at her throat. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice trembling. "Get behind me!" The boy clutched her leg, eyes wide and terrified. They were trapped. No avenue of escape, only the relentless shadow dancing like a predator before them. "What do you mean we've awakened the curse?" Sarah demanded, trying to mask her fear. The corners of the room felt like they were folding in on her, darkness pooling, waiting for her to falter. Suddenly, the figure surged forward, too fast, too smooth, as if the darkness itself had come alive. It lunged, reaching for Jake. "Mom!" he cried, but Sarah was already moving. She shoved him away, mustering all her strength into a swing of the knife just as the figure drew close. The blade whirled through the air. A hollow scream erupted, a sound devoid of humanity. The knife passed through the shadow without resistance, and Sarah stumbled back, disbelief flooding her. "What did you do to it?" Jake screamed, his small voice cracking. "Nothing. I don't know." Panic had set in, coursing through her veins. She edged toward the doorway, the room shifting under the weight of their impending doom. The figure halted, recoiling for a moment before its laughter returned, shrill and delighting in their frailty. tossed back its head, reveling in their terror. You can't stop what has already been awakened. Sarah felt the hairs on her neck rise as the shadows darkened, swirling and lapping at her feet, clawing their way toward her. We have to go, Jake, she yelled. But the boy was frozen, eyes fixated on the apparition with a mix of fear and fascination. Jake, she snapped, shaking him as the figure began to dissolve into a cascade of shadow, spilling across the floor like a black tide. Look at its eyes, Mom, he whispered, pointing. It's like it knows us. The moment his words settled, the air grew thick, the shadows quivered, and the figure's face emerged again, more distinct this time, eyes reflecting sorrow and anger. Sarah, it croaked, a chill running through her. You left me. An icy wave crashed over Sarah. How could it know her name? Who was this thing, really? No, she shouted defiantly. You're not real. But as soon as she uttered those words, memories surfaced, images of a past she fought to bury, a lost brother, abandoned, twisted by grief. A rush of guilt surged through her. Had she caused this? Were they both suffering for choices she made? Mom, please. Jake tugged at her arm, pleading. Before Sarah could respond, the shadows thickened around the room, closing in with a sudden ferocity. A door that hadn't been there before now stood ajar, a shimmering white light peeking through the cracks. Go, she shouted, pushing Jake towards it. But the figure lunged again, energy crackling in the air as her nightmare unfurled its gnarled fingers. Stay away from him, she screamed, the knife raised once more. But in desperation she knew no physical weapon would work here. It was tethered to her past, and it unveiled what she feared most. You will never escape the curse, it hissed, each word a dagger through her heart. With every ounce of courage left, Sarah pulled Jake behind her and scrambled toward the light. Fear surged in the pit of her stomach as shadows clawed at her heels, trying to drag them back into the ominous dark. Mom, Jake cried, clinging to her fiercely. Hold on. As they neared the glow, a fierce wind erupted, sweeping them toward the light. The figure screeched, the sound reverberating like thunder, rattling the very bones of the house. Just before they crossed through, the voice of the shadow echoed one last time. There's nowhere to hide. With a blinding flash, they were engulfed in light. But the moment they thought they found solace, darkness lurked just beyond the periphery, waiting and watching. Shadows danced flickeringly at the edges, whispering secrets they couldn't quite comprehend. What awaited them in that light? Was it truly safety, or a deeper trap? The silence was deafening, but the ominous sense of dread never left their sides. They weren't safe yet. What if the curse had merely changed forms? And then Jake gasped, his face pale as the darkness revealed itself once more. Mom, what if it followed us? A jolt of horror surged through her. Would they ever find peace? Or was it merely a haunting that would never fade? The laughter echoed in the distance, entwining with the light. What horror was yet to come? The blinding light faded, revealing a twisted, darkened reflection of the room they had just fled. The floorboards creaked underfoot, the air thick with a tension that made Sarah's skin crawl. Instead of relief, a fresh terror welled in her chest. This wasn't safety. It was a stage set for nightmares. Jake, she murmured, uncertainty flooding her voice as she searched the space for any trace of familiarity. The walls were lined with portraits, faces twisted in silent screams, eyes blackened voids that seemed to watch their every move. Mom, I don't like this, Jake whimpered, tugging at her sleeve, his small form trembling. The shadows from the earlier nightmare felt like they latched onto Jake, wrapping him in a suffocating grasp. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing down, probing her secrets. Stay close, she whispered, her own voice shaky as she took a cautious step forward. Each creak of the floor sent a shiver down her spine, echoing her urgency. Do you think we messed up? Jake's voice was barely above a whisper, full of worry, reflecting a child's innate fear of the unknown. I don't know, honey, Sarah replied, trying to mask her own anxiety. They needed to find a way out, but every direction seemed to lead them deeper into the foreboding atmosphere. We just need to keep moving. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the room, the doors slamming shut behind them, trapping them inside. Panic surged in Sarah's chest. Jake, we need to find a way out. The windows rattled violently, shadows pooling in the corners, culminating into a shape that twisted and morphed behind them. Heart racing, she spun around only to see the silhouette of the figure from before. It was no longer just a shadow. It was here, breathing, alive. You think you can escape so easily? The figure's voice slithered into her mind, coiling around her sanity. You've brought this upon yourself. Your past is the key, and it won't let you forget. No, this can't be happening. Sarah felt a sickening churn in her stomach. This was her fault. The pain of her past spilling over like a shattered glass. Mom, I'm scared, Jake yelled, his small voice trembling. The boy edged closer, eyes wide as he spotted the figure hovering near the portraits, their eyes glinting in eerie delight. The remorse thickened in the air, swirling like a tempest. Sarah clenched her jaw. All she wanted was to protect her son. We have to find the door, she urged, forcing Jake to back away from the horror before them. But the shadow extended a hand, fingertips stained with darkness reaching toward them. Face the past, Sarah. It's your only salvation or your doom. No, Sarah cried, stepping forward and blocking Jake with her body. I won't let you take him. She felt every muscle tense, every instinct scream to defend her child. The darkness shifted, almost in laughter, as it filled the room with an oppressive weight. The portraits seemed to shift, faces contorting in agony as silent witnesses to her shame. Look at what you've created, the figure whispered, voice a serpent's hiss. Running from your demons only makes them stronger. Images flashed through Sarah's mind, echoes of her brother's anguished eyes, her own screams as she let go. I didn't want you left him. It shrieked, claws extending in a horrifying frenzy. Desperation surged. We won't go back, she screamed, thrusting a hand toward the lingering darkness. But as she did, the room shuddered. The portraits shifted, their faces melting into grotesque shapes, each mouth cursing her with silent fury. The walls pulsated, and she could feel her control slipping away, dragging them into the depths of despair. Mom! Jake cried out, pulling her skirt, the terror in his eyes rocketing her resolve. She looked at him, the only light in her shadowed past. Together, she whispered fiercely, we fight this, together. The shadows flickered, hesitated, and for a brief moment, doubt filled the air. Sarah, what are you willing to sacrifice? The figure loomed closer, its eyes burning with anticipation. With a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. She would face whatever twisted fate awaited them. But as they stood firm, ready to challenge the darkness, the ground cracked beneath them, revealing a swirling void below, a swirling gateway to her past. Mom, don't let it take us, Jake shouted, grasping her tightly. And just before anything could happen, the void pulsed, inviting, beckoning. Do you dare to take the leap? Every nerve screamed, urging her to turn away. Yet she felt stuck. This was the moment where everything would change. Could she confront her past, risking it all? Would it truly set them free? Or was this the final step into a darker abyss? The answer echoed in the void, waiting for her decision. The floor beneath Sarah's feet trembled as she stared into the pulsing void. A sickly, sweet scent wafted up from it, curling into her senses, wrapping around her thoughts. It was not merely a portal. It felt like an inviting embrace from something far more sinister. The shadows hummed, victorious in their anticipation, and she knew they were hungry. In the brief silence that followed, Sarah felt her heart pounding, echoing the uncertainty that thrummed in the air. The question hung heavily between them, both chilling and revealing. What was she willing to sacrifice? Mom! Jake's voice pulled her back. His panic-stricken face was illuminated with terror and confusion. Don't let it win. We have to get out. His words struck a chord. What did winning mean to this darkness? She took a steadying breath. If this void was indeed a gateway to her past, perhaps that was where she could regain her strength. But could she protect Jake while facing the demons that had haunted her for so long? The shadows twisted, growing more substantial with each passing second, their whispers clawing at her sanity. "You know what's waiting for you, don't you want to see?" "No," she shouted, her voice shaking the air. Mustering every ounce of defiance in her being, she pulsed with urgency. "We're not going back." Then came a voice from the depths of the void, a low, mocking tone that felt cold and familiar. "You think you can just deny it? It's already a part of you." The edges of the void shimmered, showing fleeting images her brother's laughter cut short by an accident. That one devastating evening that had ripped her life apart. She was on the edge of surrender, but the thought of Jake kept her grounded. He needed her now more than ever. "Mom, please." Jake's little hand tightened in hers, his grip shaking with fear. For a fleeting moment, she felt her resolve wavering, and in that instant of weakness, the shadows surged, eager to consume them both. A cacophony of lost voices rose around them, echoing her past mistakes and failures, each more haunting than the last. "Face your guilt. Face your truth," they cried out, their tones scraping against her heart. "Only then can you free him." "No," she screamed, as the ground shook again. The portraits surrounding them sprang to life, their faces contorted in anguish, mouths open in silent pleas. Their agony filled the air around her, making it difficult to breathe. "Mom, listen," Jake pleaded, his small voice trembling. "We have to run." Before she could respond, the shadows thickened, coiling around her legs like creeping ivy, dragging her closer to the edge. The void shimmered, now an abyss that threatened to swallow them both whole. Survival screamed in every fiber of her being. Clenching Jake's hand, she stepped backward, fighting against the shadows with all her strength. "Not today. We will not be taken." With a fierce determination surging through her, she recalled everything she had tried to leave behind: the guilt, the anger, the fear. If she was to face this very darkness, she needed to embrace it. "Jake, hold on tight." With every ounce of will, she turned her focus inward, channeling everything she had into the void. "I will not be defined by my past." In that moment, the darkness shrieked in anger, its hold loosening as waves of light pulsed from her core. But as the light began to dissipate the shadows, the void amplified, the barrier weakening. "Do you really think you can change what has been done?" The mocking voice sneered, now racked with menace. "You're still so weak," she stumbled forward, breathless but resolute. "I can do this. I'm fighting for my son." Suddenly, a blast of energy erupted from within, forcing the shadows to retreat. The portraits screamed in fury, their cries blending into a deafening roar. The void writhed, twisting as if resisting her resolve. But Jake's grip was firm in her hand, his belief in her shining brightly through his fear. The darkness pulsed one final time before it began to crack, fissures of horrifying despair splintering off into the air. "Mom, look," Jake called out, pointing toward one of the portraits that had flickered wildly, revealing a terrifying visage, a distorted image of her younger self staring back, tears streaming down her face. Just as realization began to dawn on Sarah, a chilling laughter echoed from the now splintering void. "Every choice has a price. Are you prepared to pay it?" As the ground began to collapse around them, Sarah blinked, trying to process the sight before her, the mouth of the void eerily widening. It was all crashing down, the shadows retreating, but at what cost? "Mom, we have to jump," Jake cried, panic lacing his voice. Everything was spiraling, yet the truth loomed closer. Was this the moment of freedom she sought, or would it bind her to her past forever? With only seconds to decide, she felt a shiver run through her. "Together," she shouted, gripping Jake tightly as she took a step towards the dark chasm, and together, they leapt. But what awaited them on the other side? Would they truly escape the darkness, or would it swallow them whole? As they plunged into the unknown, the echoes of their past screamed louder, reverberating hauntingly in her ears. In that blurry moment, the only thing she could be sure of was the weight of her choices, and the crushing blow of the shadows close behind. They landed hard, the breath knocked from their lungs. Darkness surrounded them, thick and suffocating, a weight pressing in from all sides. Panic surged as Sarah instinctively clutched Jake tighter. The air felt electric, crackling with a tension she could almost see, like starlight on the brink of a storm. "Mom?" Jake's voice quivered, barely a whisper. "Where are we?" "Stay close," she urged, pushing away the tightening dread in her chest. The shadows felt alive, shifting around them, whispering secrets that sent chills crawling down her spine. She could sense their malevolent presence, lurking just beyond her sight. In the inky blackness, faint shapes began to materialize, twisted forms of memories she thought she had buried. They flickered like candle flames, glowing dimly before snuffing themselves out. Sarah fought the urge to look away but found herself drawn in, each ghostly image tugging at her heart. "Run!" The shadows hissed, their voices a cacophony of lost souls. "You can't escape what you are. You belong to us." "No," she shouted, pushing back against the chilling grip of despair. "You don't own me." She needed to move to find a way out. She gripped Jake's hand and began to walk forward, the unsettling darkness nearly swallowing them whole with each step. Suddenly, a piercing scream echoed in the void, and Sarah froze. It sounded like her brother, a raw, visceral cry that twisted deep within her. "Jake, hold on," she gasped, tugging him along while fighting the surge of memories trying to drown her. "Mom, I can't breathe," Jake wailed, his small voice breaking through her panic. "Just don't let go." She felt her heart lurch as uncertainty flooded her thoughts. What if they wouldn't find their way back? What if they were lost forever? As they trudged on, the surroundings morphed. Fragments of her past materialized around them, her childhood home, the echoes of laughter now replaced by sorrow. Each familiar sight was tainted by grief, pulling at her resolve. But in the shadows, she sensed something more than just memory. There was a grotesque hunger lingering, eager to devour them both. "Face it," hissed one of the shadows, its form blending seamlessly into the darkness. "Face your guilt. You cannot hide." "No," she screamed at the shadows, her voice trembling with defiance. "You won't break me. I'm here for my son." The darkness howled around them, swirling with anger as if grasping at her words. But instead of terrifying her, it ignited a flicker of strength within her. She knew she had to confront her past, but would it destroy her instead? "Mom, look." Jake pointed at a reflection in a surface that appeared from nowhere, a warped mirror showing another version of her broken, alone, the weight of regret heavy on her shoulders. Tears streamed down her face. "Is that you?" "No, not me." But even as she shouted, the truth began to grip her heart. "I'm not that person anymore." The air thickened, filled with the scent of decay and desperation as the shadows thrummed with anticipation. It was clear they were closing in, longing to pull her back into the dark abyss of her mistakes. "Every regret, every moment of weakness, they'll consume you," they shrieked, a sinister chant swelling in intensity. With every ounce of her being, Sarah took a bold step forward, pushing against the wicked whispers taunting her. "I want to go back. I'm fighting for Jake, for a better future." "Mom, it's too much." Jake yanked on her arm, fear reflected in his eyes. "No, I can do this." But as she pressed on, everything around them began to shift violently. The darkness pulsated, swirling into a cyclone of despair. Wails erupted from all sides, memories crashing together as the shadows closed in tighter, desperate for her surrender. "Together," she shouted, gripping Jake tightly. "Stay with me." Just then, a blinding light erupted from deep within, a stark contrast to the darkness surrounding them. The shadows recoiled, snapping like brittle twigs. Sarah squinted against the glow, feeling the power rise within her like a tidal wave. In that flash of light she caught a glimpse faint, yet undeniable of the path ahead. But would it lead to freedom or to eternal darkness? She could feel the ground shifting beneath them, the very fabric of reality unraveling. The shadows screamed as they pulled back, rage and fear mixing with desperation. But something deep within her whispered hope, the chance to break free and reclaim her life. As the intensity grew, she knew what she had to do. Jake, jump! Before they made the leap into the unknown yet again, uncertainty tightened its grip like a vice. What lay beyond that light? Would they find release, or would darkness drag them back, binding them to their past forever? The choice loomed heavy in the air, waiting to be made. They jumped together, propelled by the shimmering light that felt both inviting and terrifying. A rush of silence enveloped them, wrapping around their bodies like a cocoon as they plummeted through the air. Seconds stretched, or was it minutes? Then, they landed, not with a crash, but with an eerie stillness. Jake gasped, "Mom, are we safe?" The whispering shadows they had escaped were gone, but the air around them felt thick with an unsettling pressure. They found themselves in a dimly lit corridor. Flickering lights hummed overhead, shadows yawned in the corners, and the walls were lined with strange, peeling portraits. Each face in the paintings stared back, eyes glinting with malice, mouths twisted in silent screams. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. "We need to find a way out, Jake," she urged, the fear gathering like storm clouds above them. "Where are we?" Jake's voice shook. He was searching his surroundings, wide-eyed, darting glances at the encroaching shadows along the walls. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. "But we can't stay here." They moved forward, their footsteps echoing in the confined space. Each step brought with it a feeling of dread, a growing sense that they were being watched. The flickering lights above dimmed, plunging them into deep shadows. The corridor twisted and turned, shifting as if to disorient them further. "Mom," he grabbed her hand tighter. "I don't like this. Why do these pictures look so angry?" "I don't know, sweetheart." She scanned the gloom, feeling a chill run down her spine. "Just keep going." Then, a door creaked open at the end of the corridor, beckoning them with an ominous invitation. Sarah hesitated, her breath caught in her throat. "Should we?" Before she could finish her sentence, a strong force pulled her forward, her feet moving without her consent. She stumbled into the room, dragging Jake along. What lay inside froze her blood. It was a vast chamber, walls lined with floor-to-ceiling mirrors that reflected not just their terrified faces, but slivers of darker things lurking behind them. Shadows roamed, shifting shapes that loomed and twisted, plotting in the reflections. "Mom! Mom! What's happening?" Jake screamed, pressing closer to her. Sarah's mind raced. "Look away from the mirrors, Jake. Don't let them in." Desperation clawed at her as she shielded her son's eyes. But from the corners of the mirrors, whispered voices seeped, hissing secrets that floated through the air, snagging on the edges of her mind. "Sarah," a voice slithered from a mirror, smooth and familiar. "Why do you run?" "You've always known the truth." The shadowy figure of her brother appeared, his face twisted in agony. "Help me stop," Sarah yelled, a surge of anger igniting within her. "You're not real. You can't have us." "Mom!" Jake tugged at her sleeve, his small body trembling. "What do we do?" The lights flickered more violently now. The mirrors vibrated, creating a dissonant hum that resonated in her bones. Shadows began to spill from the glass, creeping closer, their whispers mixing into a maddening chant. "Face your guilt. Embrace your past." Sarah felt the weight of her memories pressing down harder. They were closing in. She gritted her teeth, refusing to succumb to the dark demands. Suddenly, fury surged. "Enough!" she shouted, stepping forward with purpose. "I will not be a prisoner of my past." But then, one of the shadows lunged forward, sending shards of glass flying. Jake let out an involuntary yelp, and Sarah jerked her body to shield him. "No!" The world around them spun violently, the chamber warping, a sinking realization hitting her core. They were trapped unless she could confront what haunted her. As a new vision flickered in her mind, a choice long buried, a glimmer of understanding sparked. But in that moment of clarity, the darkness closed in swift and suffocating. "Mom!" Jake's voice split through the chaos, trembling. "What do we do?" The answer hung in the air, heavy with the burden of choices past and future. Did she have the strength to fight? What remnants awaited her on the other side of the mirrors? A sharp cry sliced through the tension, echoing through the room. It wasn't Jake. What was that? Sarah turned sharply, her heart racing. The sound beckoned from a darkened corner, an eerie melody of despair, and she knew that sound might lead them either to salvation or to a deeper, more terrifying truth. Jake, she whispered, dread pooling in her stomach. We need to find out what that is, but what awaited them in the shadows. Would it be a chance to escape, or another trap, ensnaring them in eternal darkness? As they stood in the vast chamber, shadows writhed closer, the room pulsing as if alive with their malevolence. Sarah clutched Jake's hand tightly, determination filling her depths. We're ending this, she whispered, clenching her jaw. The echoes of despair grew louder, and the haunting melody beckoned from the corner, a siren-esque call that promised answers. With each step, the shadows recoiled, as if hesitant to face her newfound resolve. Not today. Not anymore. Mom, wait! Jake's trembling voice pierced her focus. She turned to him, his wide eyes filled with fear. What if it's a trap? Then we'll fight. Together, she said, fiercely squeezing his hand. The shadows hissed and groaned around them, desperate to keep them shackled to their past. But with a deep breath, Sarah pressed forward, carrying Jake on her determined shoulders. They moved toward the source of the sound, confronting an imposing mirror propped against the wall, its surface swirling with dark energy. The melody grew stronger, a haunting harmony that wrapped around their hearts, a bittersweet reminder of the past. Step back, Jake, Sarah cautioned, holding him close. Let me see. In a moment of courage, she placed her palm flat against the glass. As the contact permeated her skin, chilling images burst forth, flashes of laughter twisted with agony. Scenes of family dinners blended into cries of hurt. And there, right in the midst of it all, was her brother, Jake's uncle, calling out to her, fragile but real. Sarah, help me, came his pitiful plea, sorrow etched into his features. Shadows glimmered around him, caressing his image. No, she exclaimed, pulling her hand back. You're not real. You're just a memory. The room flickered unsteadily, and the shadows thickened, and raged at her denial. Face us, they hissed, their voices a monstrous chorus. Get away from him, Sarah shouted, turning toward Jake, whose grip tightened in fear. She had to protect him from this torment, the shadows, the lies, everything that had haunted her family for too long. Feeling an unexpected warmth surge from the center of her heart, she propelled herself forward. I will face my past. I will stand for my son. The shadows recoiled, whispering in discord. Sarah could feel the weight of their anger, but she wouldn't let it consume her. She pressed closer to the mirror again, this time seeking the truth behind her brother's eyes, the love buried under layers of grief and guilt. Tell me what happened, she yelled into the depths of the darkness. Suddenly a blinding light erupted from the mirror, casting shadows away and revealing clear reflections behind its weighted surface. The truth spilled forth. A night where laughter had turned to chaos. A moment of loss that thoroughly shattered their lives. Sarah, came a soft voice, emerging from within the light. Her brother. It wasn't your fault. No, she begged, shaking her head furiously. I should have saved you. The soothing light cascaded around her, illuminating memories, dispelling doubt. You tried. You did everything you could. Let me go, sis. A deep sob broke loose from Sarah as she recognized the weight she'd carried all her life. It wasn't her fault. The shadows shivered, their grasp weakening, craving the pain she'd harbored for too long. Mom, it's working, Jake shouted, eyes brightening. Using this new strength, Sarah turned back to the swirling shadows that thrashed about the room, fighting against the liberating light. You won. Take us. Face your truth, the shadows hissed, flitting around her body. You carry the weight of your mistakes. No, Sarah screamed. I carry love. I carry my son. And today, we break the curse together. With her voice ringing as a battle cry, the shimmering light surged, illuminating every corner of the chamber. The walls throbbed, shadows dissipating in frantic retreat, as the air grew warm and inviting instead of ruthless and chilling. "Jump!" Sarah turned to Jake as he looked up at her, tears shining in his eyes. "Mom, what if just trust me? We're going to leap toward the light one final time. It's our only escape." Hand in hand, they soared through the chamber into the radiant glow, breathless as shadows wailed, desperate to hold on. The portal enveloped them, a brilliant embrace that filled them with warmth and peace, the darkness pulling away like a sunset retreating from dawn. With a final push of energy, they broke through, landing not in dread, but in an open field kissed by sunlight. The air was fresh, and everywhere, laughter erupted from nearby children. They were free. "Did we do it?" Jake whispered, awestruck. "Yes, sweetheart. We faced darkness together, and now we find the light." Sarah smiled, pulling him close and breathing deeply, joy flooding her heart. They turned to look back at the fading shadows, their twisted forms fading into nothingness, forever defeated. As they walked hand in hand into the vibrancy surrounding them, a sense of deep peace filled the space between them. They had faced the greatest of fears and survived. "We will always remember," Sarah whispered, her voice strong. "But now we look forward." "Yeah, Mom. Together." And as they stepped forward into their new life, darkness no longer lingered in fear. It held no power. Instead, they found hope, and with that hope bloomed endless possibilities. Shattered chains of torment now lifted for good. The laughter of children echoed behind them, a reminder of life reclaiming its joy of victory over the sinister shadows. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Sarah and Jake walked into a future full of promise. The darkness was gone, replaced by the light of understanding, love, and the unbreakable bond of family. Now more than ever, they were free. If you loved this story and want to hear more like it, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. Don't wait even one more second. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the story flowing. Your thoughts matter. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this ending. And do not forget share this video with at least 5 friends who absolutely need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.